Hey guys, Clayton here, and yeah, I know it's February. I should have had this out sooner, but things happened. I'm again busy with my job. At the beginning of January, I caught COVID, and it was all a mess. However, among that time being sick, I was able to catch up on some of the movies I did not see in 2021. I can safely say that 2021 was probably a pretty good year for movies. Again, there were some bad ones, and you're about to see what I put on here, but there are also some good ones on here as well. Now, I didn't see every bad movie this year. I mean, I skipped out on music entirely. I've heard so much controversy and crap around it, I just didn't give it any attention or any mind. And unlike previous worst of the year lists, this time I've narrowed it down to five. I'm pulling a Nordy on this one, and I'll tell you five movies I saw this year that I thought were, well, crap. And I'll give it this. Even though these movies are bad, I do think they're a little, slightly, emphasis on slightly, better than the previous 2 years I've been doing these videos. But before we begin the worst of the year, I will give you all of my dishonorable mentions. And two of these I found to be kind of meh, like sort of okay, but not great. But the other two I'll say weren't very good. Okay, for the meh movies that are in my dishonorable mentions, mine are going to be Don't Breathe 2 and Venom, Let There Be Carnage. But in terms of other dishonorable mentions, like the actual dishonorable mentions, are Mortal Kombat, Space Jam: A New Legacy, and Coming to America. Alright, with all that said, let's take a look at some of the worst 2021 has to offer. We're counting down my worst movies of 2021. Number 5. Home Sweet Home Alone. You guys know how much I love the original Home Alone, and when this dropped, I wanted to give it a fair shot even if others don't. And yeah, it's bad. That's why it's on the list. But I don't think it's the worst thing ever like a lot of people are saying. And besides, nothing is worse than Home Alone 4. Nothing is worse than Home Alone 4. Nothing. 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 Okay, while this does have a few moments that I chuckled, and I'll at least give it credit that it does try to do something a bit different with the formula, that also leads to its biggest problem. I do find it interesting that it focuses on the burglars, but they're not really burglars. They're just a married couple going through hard times, and when they go through the traps, it's not really funny. It's kind of sad, because you feel more sympathy towards them, unlike, say, Harry and Marv, who are clearly the bad guys. And the main kid isn't exactly likable or given any time to develop. And I'm not entirely blaming Archie Yates. He's trying, it's just a poorly written character. I hope he does get a better shot in the future because he shows promise. I'll give it credit for trying to change it up a bit, but this does kind of show that the series kind of needs to stop. Number 4. Tom and Jerry. I wanted to like this, really, I wanted to, but this unfortunately comes off like most live-action animated adaptations of classic cartoons, generic as hell, which is something that the Tom and Jerry movies aren't. I'll give it credit for the most part that the animation is good, and when Tom and Jerry are on screen, they do their classic gags and violence, which can garner a chuckle or two. Other than that, it kind of feels like a bad episode of a knockoff Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. It feels like a waste of talented actors like Chloe Grace Moretz, Michael Pena, and Ken Jeong, who are trying but are given a bad script to work off of. It says something when the 1992 movie and the Willy Wonka crossover are more memorably bad than this, which is just generic bad. If you want your Tom and Jerry fix, just watch the shorts instead of this lame recreation of them. Number 3. Thunder Force. In the age of big superhero movies, it's nice that we get an original one and with sort of a comedic edge. Unfortunately, this wasn't it. The concept isn't that bad. I like the idea of a send-up of superheroes with middle-aged women, but the issue is that it comes off extremely lazy. Now, I have nothing against Melissa McCarthy. She can be funny in movies like Bridesmaids in the Heat, and I'm one of the few people that like the Happy Time Murders. And this one isn't as bad as some of her movies like Tammy or The Boss, but her shtick is starting to get kind of old at this point. Octavia Spencer is trying, but her and Melissa McCarthy don't have any chemistry, and their banter together just isn't funny. The other actors are also giving it their all, but it kind of undermines their talent given that they're working with a bad script, and the jokes drag on for a long time because it feels like they're improvising most of it. Despite having talented actors and decent effects, it doesn't save it from being a weak send-up. Number 2. Cinderella. Now, there's nothing wrong with updating the tale of Cinderella with a modern, almost Hamilton-like twist, and while they do try, the issue is that they try probably a bit too hard, and where it comes off kind of cringy. And what I mean is that they tried so hard to be relevant and hip, it loses any charm of being a timeless tale like some of the other adaptations of the story. The actors are talented and are doing their best, but they can come off pretty stilted, and the characters they play can be really shallow, and the jokes are very poor. And did I mention this is a jukebox musical and not a good one at that? Granted, there are some songs that are alright, and at least they did 2 original songs, but some don't make sense, like Seven Nation Army, for instance. It kinda makes Strange Magic look like Chicago in comparison. If you want a good live-action adaptation of Cinderella, I highly recommend these versions because this one is a glass slipper that doesn't fit. And my number 1 worst movie of 2021 is Karen. This movie feels like a joke, like an SNL skit spoofing the idea of a movie based on the Karen meme. But it's not a joke, it's real. And it wants to be a serious horror movie, but it doesn't work. A movie based on the Karen meme could work if it was done like a clever dark comedy, but it suffers from the same problem I had with Antebellum. It takes itself too seriously and could have benefited if it had somewhat of a sense of humor. It wants to be like Get Out while being a slight race gender bent version of Lakeview Terrace, but the characters aren't likable that you don't care about what happens to the couple Karen is after. I will give it this. As bad as this is, I can sort of see it being one of those movies people will watch for bad movie nights. While this isn't as bad as some of the previous worst movies I've talked about, like Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson or the movie that shall not be named, Karen still remains the worst movie of 2021. And those were the worst movies I saw in 2021. And let me know, what are the worst movies you saw in 2021? Leave them down in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. But with all that said, hopefully I can get my best of the year out as soon as I can. But until then, this is Clayton, signing out. And also, like always, if you have disagree with my list, that is totally okay. You're not an idiot, you're not below me, you're not whatever. We are all different in our opinions and movies, and that's a good thing.